You are looking live at Olympic Stadium. It's been 10 years since the CFL has strutted on that very field. Tonight, it returns. It's going to be great. The Toronto Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes. Last year, the Alouettes were 15-3 as we knew them as the Baltimore Stallions. As for the Toronto Argonauts, they were 4-14. They only won one game on the road all last year. Can they walk in there to Montreal tonight and win, Glenn?
Well, I mean, Don Matthews is the key to this. I mean, Don Matthews, wherever he goes, comes up with a winner. And when you get the best offensive player in the league, in Doug Flutie, then you get the best defensive player in the league, in my opinion. I mean, no offense to Willie Pless, who is a great player, but Tim Caulfield was the best in the league last year. And
really?
You get those two guys on your team.
2 years.
Absolutely. You get those two guys on your team, I think you got a shot.
Oh, yeah, I think so for sure. But I got to go with Montreal. I think that with Tracy Ham playing as strong as he's playing right now and preseason, early in preseason, he usually doesn't really start to run or anything until like mid-season when he really has to.
What about
and
Mike Clemens?
He's taking off right now. I pick Montreal to win this one.
You think Montreal will be able to shut down the pinball?
Well, I know that Dave Ritchie's a heck of a defensive mind coach, and he's got some good people with him, and Gene Gaines, and I think that they'll shut him down.
He's never shut down pinball before, first of all. Argos win big. Flutie's really psyched up to do well. Matthews is very psyched up. Argos win big in this game.
While we talk about Caulfield and his presence along the line, and he will be pressuring Tracy Ham, there's no doubt about that. They've added another good defensive lineman in Andrew Stewart, and that gives them a pretty good punch along the D-line. In fact, their D-line was so good they got rid of Jeff Cummins, who had, 7 sacks last year. Let's talk about the other side of the ball for Toronto, or I should say Montreal. Will they be able to come out and play good, strong, effective football against a Toronto offense led by Flutie? How do you defend against them? How did you try to stop Flutie, Glenn?
You know how you stop Doug Flutie? You keep him on the sideline where he can't have the ball. And that'll be the key for Montreal. Can Tracy Ham keep ball possession? And with the style of offense that they run, with 50% run and 50% pass, with that big offensive line, that's the perfect type of offense to keep Doug Flutie off the field on the opposing team. So if any team's going to do it, it's going to be this team, Montreal.
I know that keeping Doug off on the sideline is probably the basic thing to do. But I tell you what, he's had the rap so much that if you could play weak side zone against him, that his arm wasn't strong enough to throw it to the wide side of the field, which this field is mighty big. But Doug is going to get his no matter what.
Exactly.
You know, you have to play him. You're going to play him. You have to go out and you have to score more points than what he's going to score.
Hey, weak side, schmeek side, how many interceptions did you get in your career off Doug Flutie?
2.
How many did you get?
Probably 1 or 2.
Maybe, right?
Maybe. None.
Wait a minute. The point is, Flutie will have a field day today. That Montreal defense is not what the Baltimore defense was last year. Let's be honest here.
Well, Les knows his defense. He had 87 career interceptions in the Canadian Football League, and Glenn.
Yeah, but only 2 off Flutie.
Glenn had his share as well. That'll do it for now. At the half, we're going to talk Eskies and Lions. It's time to play some football.
Years ago it opened, and Greg Joy's silver medal in the high jump electrified Canadians. Bruce Jenner's gold in the decathlon was one of the highlights. The opening and closing ceremonies at the Olympics were held here, along with soccer. 10 years ago this November, the last CFL regular season game was played at the Olympic Stadium, featuring these two teams, the Montreal Alouettes and the Toronto Argonauts. And now, in another Olympic summer, the CFL is back in Montreal. I'm Gord Miller with Leif Pedersen, getting set for the opening kickoff. Mike Vanderjet will kick it off for the Toronto Argonauts facing the Montreal Alouettes. And the CFL is back in Montreal. This is Tyrone Rush with room to run from his 20. Rush gets up across the 45 and out to the 50-yard line. Finally stacked up there by the Argos' Don Odegaard, a 32-yard kickoff return. The starting lineup's brought to you by Corel. 32-year-old Tracy Ham, the MVP in the CFL in 1989, leads this Montreal Alouettes offense. And joining him in the backfield, some familiar names from other teams, Mike Saunders and Mike Soles. Jock Climby starts at wide receiver, along with Nigel Williams. And the front line features Nick Subas, a holdover from last year's Baltimore Grey Cup team, along with Mike Withacombe and Neil Ford. 1st and 10 from the shotgun. The give goes to Mike Saunders, who piles his way up through the middle for a quick gain of 4 yards. He's stopped on the play by Rob Waldron.
Well, if one thing the Toronto Argonauts had to do this year was they had to improve on defense, and I think they've done that. You look at Tim Cofield, who's come over, 24 sacks last year. Andrew Stewart, a free agent from BC. They are better. A little undersized at linebacker with Greg Eaglin and Donnie Wilson, former defensive backs, but the defensive secondary is going to get a test with Donald Smith and Marcelo Simmons on the corners.
On 2nd down, they fake the draw play and Ham to throw over the middle, has him in and completes it there to Nigel Williams. And it's a 1st down into Toronto territory at the 40, but there's a flag at the Toronto 47-yard line. And check that, the pass is complete to Jock Climby, number 82. And it's coming back.
And regardless of what happens with this penalty, and it looks as though it's going to go against Montreal, that's a good sign to see Jock Climby go high.
Receiver, Montreal, number 82. Repeat 2nd down.
Climby was ineligible on the play, and so it wipes out an 18-yard gain by Montreal. Jake Ireland in his 18th year in the Canadian Football League, overseeing the proceedings today.
Just to finish the thought on Jock Climby, had a rough year last year, and good to see him early in the season go high in the air and make that catch, knowing that Dan Murphy was in the area getting ready to hit him. And Jock Climby is going to have a big year. This is a different offense, let's face it, for Montreal, and a couple Canadians at the wideouts, and they'll have to produce.
Now 2nd and long for the Alouettes, and they're going deep to Nigel Williams, who was open for a moment, but then double covered. Back deep, Dan Murphy, the safety, to help out Marcelo Simmons.
You know, Gord, everybody asks, you know, what is different about Montreal than that was Baltimore a year ago? Well, definitely the receiving core is different. Here's young Nigel Williams, who played briefly with the Ottawa Rough Riders last year. He has come over to Montreal, and now they start 2 Canadians, Climby and Williams outside and Joey Yock inside. So definitely a difference in that team and that receiving core.
Terry Baker kicks it away to Jimmy the Jet Cunningham, who takes it at his own 27-yard line. 3 punt returns for touchdowns last year, but he gets nowhere in his first return of 1996, as he is stacked up immediately by Grant Carter. And so the Argos will start at their own 23-yard line, led by Doug Flutie, the 4-time CFL MVP. The 33-year-old goes to Toronto, his 3rd CFL team. Joining him in the backfield, veteran Mike Clemens, along with Robert Drummond from the Grey Cup championship team in Baltimore. Mazzati, Williams, Fairholm, and Cunningham up front, and Mike Kiselak, the all-star center in the CFL last year, anchors a veteran offensive line. 1st down for the Argos. Flutie from the shotgun. The shovel pass underneath to Robert Drummond. He's got room to go. Puts his head down. Still going. Gets out to the 46-yard line. Oh, man. Did he steamroll the Montreal Alouette, Charles Gordon. Gain of 23.
Absolutely ran over Charlie Gordon. Here's Drummond here. He's just going to come in motion, and Doug Flutie gives him the little shovel pass up front. Good looking play to start. See, they influence Grant Carter on the outside, get him upfield, and watch him run over Charles Gordon right there. Hey, good blow delivered by an offensive player.
And back underneath they go. Again, it's to Robert Drummond, and Drummond out across the 50 to about the 52-yard line. So Drummond, the Argo early offense here, as he picks up 6.
And again, a lot of changes on defense for the Baltimore, now Montreal Alouettes. Goner, O.J. Brigance, Gerald Bayless, and Elford Payton. They're replaced with guys like Doug Peterson over from BC and Paul Randolph over from Winnipeg. Look at that secondary. A lot of former Calgary Stampeders with Kenny Watson, Doug Kraft on the corner, and Spencer McLennan over from the BC Lions will start at middle safety.
2nd and 4 for the Argos, and Flutie back Back to throw. Has a man, but overthrows Drummond. And that'll bring up 3rd and long for the Argos. Robert Drummond had an outstanding year last year for the Baltimore Stallions, and this year was the Argos' leading receiver in the preseason.
Well, I think he's going to be a terrific player for Toronto. I mean, you look at this offense, and, you know, obviously on paper, you have to think it's pretty good. The offensive line is much improved. You mentioned Mike Kiselak. He anchors it in the middle. Now you have Robert Drummond, a nice complement to Mike Pinball Clemens, 2 different kinds of runners, and both excellent receivers. I mean, on paper, early in the year, you have to think this is a good-looking offense.
Mike Vanderjagt to punt, gets a good one away. This is Tyrone Rush, first-year man from Northern Alabama, from his 10, and Rush, who had a good kickoff return, gets 7 here, and a flag is down on the play. No score in the first quarter between the Montreal Alouettes and the Toronto Argonauts. The CFL Live from Montreal continues in a moment.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We've got 30 seconds. Ready, go.
Right now at McDonald's, official 96 Olympics watch is available for just $7.99.
Wow.
That's a good number. Speaking of numbers, how much time I got left?
20 seconds.
These are high-quality quartz watches with a 2-year warranty silk, and there are 4 great official Olympic designs. How about the time?
12 seconds.
Time enough to tell you that the most important news is 50 cents from the sale of every watch goes to help send our Canadian Olympic team to Atlanta. We out of time?
Almost.
You're pretty good at it.
Ever thought of rowing?
No, but I could learn.
Sure you could.
Forbidding terrain. 75 AWOL heartbeats. Second thoughts. 1 leap of faith. 140-story drop and 2 loose screws. Equals 100% pure adrenaline. For all you do, this bud's for you.
Mike Vanderjagt boomed that first punt 47 yards, but a holding penalty against the Argonauts means he'll have to do it again. Montreal was bottled up at its own 17-yard line, but now they'll have to do it again.
And Don Matthews, notoriously one of the best special team head coaches in the league over the years, and you know that's inexcusable. I know it's early in the season, but a holding penalty when you're punting the ball, I mean, unless a guy is really threatening your punter, and I could see you taking one, but that wasn't the case on that play, and that's a kind of a frustrating call to have go against you early.
Matthews facing his former boss today, Jim Spiros, and Matthews didn't really want to talk about Jim Spiros yesterday. You get the sense that maybe the parting in Baltimore might not have been completely amicable. And there's Montreal head coach Bob Swift, who's endured a difficult week, a death in the family, went home for the funeral yesterday, rejoins his team today in the return of the CFL to Montreal. So Vanderjagt moves back 10 yards and will kick it again to Tyrone Rush. Good kick again by Mike Vanderjagt. Rush from the 22-yard line. Looking for room outside, gets a block, but it looked illegal, and Rush brought down at the 41-yard line, but it looked like there was a clip, a 46-yard punt, a return of 19. Donald Smith in to make the stop.
You know, it's the same old thing. I think it's Joey Yock, and unless you can get your helmet in front, the coaches just say, pass him up, let the back make the deal, and it's going to be a holding call, but they could have had Joey Yock for clipping as well.
Joey Yock, one of many sons of famous fathers playing in this football game today.
Holding, Montreal number 21, first down.
Wayne Harris's son is playing in this game. Jack Kemp's son is playing in this game, the backup quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes. And of course, a former Montreal Alouette, Larry Farrell, has a son, Jeff, playing for Toronto. Ham and the Alouettes start back at their own 14-yard line. 3 receivers to the wide side of the field. They give it on the draw play to Mike Saunders, and Saunders very quickly gets out to the 24-yard line. A favorite play leaf of Saunders in Saskatchewan and in San Antonio last year.
Yeah, and I think it's a good play to run against Toronto, and especially to Tim Cofield's side. Run that draw, because Cofield, you know always he's going to get upfield quickly, and he's the kind of defensive end that you can run those types of draw plays against.
Saunders, a CFL All-Star in 1995. Was tremendous for the San Antonio Texans a year ago.
And you'll see him in some formations play wide receiver to try and create some matchups tonight as well.
2nd and inches, they go back to Saunders, and Saunders takes a short yardage play and busts it out across the 30 to the 32-yard line. And Mike Saunders with a pickup of 7.
You know, you and I were chatting with Mike before the game, and I said, what's your favorite running play with this new Montreal team? And he said, simply the search play, which he ran right there. He said, my offensive line, again, is so big that if I just get it deep in the backfield, I just look for a hole and sneak in behind those guys. And, you know, you notice once again, they ran right at Tim Cofield.
First down. This time they fake the draw to Saunders. Ham has room to run and tons of it. Ham may still throw and does. It is intercepted. Picked off by the safety, Dan Murphy. And Murphy's got room to run. Looking for a block. Murphy inside the 20. Gets down to the 11 before he's finally forced out of bounds. Tracy Ham looked ready to run. Decided to throw off the wrong foot. And it cost the Argos an interception and a 46-yard return by Dan Murphy.
And give a lot of credit to Reggie Gibbons, the middle linebacker, because he took such a good angle on Tracy Ham that Ham could not get outside and run with the football. And you'll see Reggie Gibbons, he's going to come to the left of your screen, and he doesn't let Ham get to the outside. Good angle right there, and he should get half the credit for this interception because this is an awful throw back across his body, and Dan Murphy's there with a pick.
And Dan Murphy, the three-time All-Canadian at Acadia, comes up with the interception. Traded to the Ottawa Rough Riders last year by the Edmonton Eskimos. Murphy gets the first interception of the season.
Well, the angle right here, you'll see it by Reggie Gibbons, just doesn't allow Ham to get to the outside. And, you know, that's a big question spot for Toronto with Gibbons taking over from Calvin Tickle. And for Dan Murphy, middle safety has also been a trouble spot over the last couple of seasons. And he's obviously off to a good start.
One of 4 Acadia graduates playing in this football game today. Another, Paul Mazzotti, checked into the game with the Toronto offense as you see Greg Eaglin leaving the football game. Eaglin shaken up slightly, goes to the Argo bench. He plays linebacker. They actually use 2 of those smallish linebackers on the Toronto defense. But right now it's the Argo offense, 1st and 10. Flutie from the shotgun, the shovel pass again, and this time nothing. They send it back to Drummond, but he is stacked up immediately by Jason Bryant, the linebacker. And it's a loss of a yard.
Pretty good reaction by Jason Bryant, number 11, who's getting the start at outside linebacker. Just as Drummond turns upfield, he's waiting right in the hole. Well, I tell you what, this is one of the things that Toronto, if they want to have a successful season, have to capitalize on these kind of opportunities.
Flipping back to the shotgun on 2nd down. As time, pass was tipped in the end zone, incomplete. He was looking there for Tyrone Williams, but Williams could not come up with the catch. And you could expect that Flutie will be looking for Williams a lot this year, but Charles Gordon, who got pancaked earlier by Robert Drummond, makes the play.
And just as Reggie Gibbons really upset the rhythm of Tracy Ham, watch Grant Carter working on the outside against Chris Perez. He's the guy that really forces Flutie to underthrow this football. A good swim move to the outside, and Doug Flutie does not want to take the hit, and he throws it really before Williams is ready, and they can't connect.
So a field goal try for Mike Vanderjagt. No, Ty Domi did not make the team.
That was fun. I was down at that game, and I'll tell you what, the fans in Toronto loved when he was kicking field goals, and he did a pretty good job, didn't he?
From the 18, Vanderjagt puts it through, and the Toronto Argonauts have the first points in the football game. Toronto up 3-0. The CFL Live continues from the Big O in a moment. Bob Price and the Alouettes down 3-0. I think I called him Bob Swift earlier. My apologies. You see at the bottom of the screen there, Dave Ritchie, the former head coach of the BC Lions, now the defensive coordinator here in Montreal. And the defense holds for Montreal, holds Toronto to a field goal, and the Argos up 3-0 early. Short kickoff by Vanderjagt, taken by Rush at the 35. Here he comes again up to the 49-yard line. Lost the football. And it is the Alouettes who maintain possession. Let's go downstairs to Michael Whalen.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Well, standing by is the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Larry. 8 minutes to go in this quarter. Can you believe it that you finally got a team here?
Well, it's been 5 years, Michael, and we're really happy to be back.
What about the crowd tonight? Are you pleased with the turnout?
Absolutely. We're still got lots of people coming in. There's long lines waiting to buy tickets. A great start.
Okay. Have a good game, Larry. Enjoy yourself. Back to you, Gordon.
Larry Smith, a player in this stadium for the Montreal Alouettes, won the Grey Cup here in 1977. Alouettes maintain possession, and back they go to the ground to Mike Saunders, and Saunders gets up to about the 54-yard line with a pickup of 6. Interesting note about Tracy Ham, the Grey Cup winning quarterback last year, did not throw a touchdown pass in the postseason. In two playoff games in the Grey Cup, did not throw a touchdown pass.
I love that when you brought that to my attention today, and that's kind of unbelievable. Tells you how they won last year with great special teams and solid defense to be able to do something like that. And I'm not sure that's the case this year.
And a running game, which they clearly have.
Absolutely.
Second down, here it comes again. This is Rush on the carry, and Rush gets stacked up quickly, fights down close to the first down, but looks like he'll be about a yard short. Rob Waldrop, number 92, and Andrew Stewart come up to help make the stop.
Andrew Stewart came over from the BC Lions, and last year he was more of a defensive end with him. Trimmed down, was a lot lighter than he is right now. When he found out he was going to play defensive tackle, he beefed up so he can push that pocket. There he is in the middle of your screen, number 73, about 15 to 20 extra pounds this year. Originally from Jamaica, moved to Toronto, and grew up in Scarborough, moved to New York when he was 13 years old, so he does qualify as a non-import, and the Argonauts were thrilled to have him, and he was thrilled to come back to Toronto where he's got lots of friends.
Third and a yard.
Or so he tells me.
Third and a yard, a little too rich for the Alouettes blood, so Terry Baker is on the punt, but there's an injured Argo at the 50-yard line. This appears to be a cramp, and that might happen a time or two here in Montreal. It's very damp in this building, and Dan Murphy, the man who intercepted the pass earlier, is down. But you were talking about when you played here. Of course, the roof wasn't on then, but it does get pretty damp in here.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I never really enjoyed playing here that much. I felt like it was a damp stadium. The field was always slippery, and obviously now with the roof on, the field is a lot drier than it was when I played. But I always found it difficult to play a stadium to play in from the noise factor here. The way the roof is kind of on an angle, the sound goes up and just comes right down to the middle of the field. And we always had difficulty hearing in this stadium.
And the crowd roars here because Bob Price has sent the offense back on the field, so the Alouettes will gamble on 3rd and a yard from the Toronto 51-yard line. Murphy.
Well, I think it's a good call by Bob Price. I mean, this is a team that's going to have to run the football. You would think they're pretty proficient at it with that big offensive line, and to me, this is not a risky gambling one that he should take.
Rush and Saunders in the backfield on 3rd and a yard. Early movement. They give it to Rush, who got tripped up initially, but got down to the 50-yard line. That should be enough for an Alouette first down. And yes, Jake Ireland indicates it is, but he very nearly was tripped up short.
Well, Toronto goes with their kind of goal line defense, and they bring number 97, Noah Cantor, in. And watch how he shoots the gap. And I'll tell you, Montreal's very fortunate that Mike Saunders was able to get away from that play by Noah Cantor right there, and actually Tyrone Rush and pick up that first down.
First down for the Alouettes from the Toronto 50-yard line. Tracy Ham and company get the ball moving. 6 minutes to go here in the first quarter. And just 2 passes thrown so far by Tracy Ham. One of them intercepted. Here comes Tyrone Rush, and he gets whacked.
Well, it's interesting now, Gord, what Montreal's doing here in the first quarter. They've had a couple of series to get comfortable, and now what they're doing is they brought Tyrone Rush in the game with Mike Saunders. Mike Saunders, the other running back, is going out as a wide receiver. They're spreading out that defense, and then they're just letting Tyrone Rush run with it behind that big offensive line.
Gain of 5 as Reggie Gibbons put the stick on him. 2nd and 5. Ham will throw again. No, he's down. Tracy Ham looked to be hurt as soon as he took the snap. And this is very grim news for the Owls. As soon as Tracy Ham took the snap, he went down.
Yeah, nobody touched him. You know, I remember years ago with the Ticats, we had a quarterback, Dave Marler, and playing at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto, he did the same thing. He took the snap, and as he went to set up, he just went down and he'd blown his knee out. But this is a real strange situation right here, and I'm sure one that's got the blood pressure and the heart rate of Bob Price at an all-time high.
Well, Jim Kemp will warm up on the Alouette sideline. We mentioned he's the son of Jack Kemp, the all-pro quarterback for the Buffalo Bills and perennial presidential candidate, or at least rumored to be. And so Kemp, last in the preseason, 12 for 20, but really didn't see much action last year for San Antonio. Just tried 100 passes. Look at that. Looked like that step right there, and he just grabbed his right hip.
Well, that's a tough one. You can't even speculate on that. That's unbelievable.
And Ham, it looks to be in a great deal of pain. And they are checking his left knee now. Well, a scary moment for the Montreal Alouettes as Tracy Ham, their starting quarterback, remains down on the field with 5:22 to go in the first quarter. And there is a great deal of concern both on the field and on the Montreal sideline.
You know, Gord, I've had a chance to view it on another monitor here a couple of more times, and I think we're going to take another look at it again. And it almost appears as though it's his lower back that really bothered him. I was trying to see the left leg and the right leg, if anything buckled, but it didn't seem to appear that way. And just as he went down, he started reaching for his lower back.
Jimmy Kemp threw 4 touchdown passes last year for San Antonio, was picked off 9 times.
All right, one more look. We're going to go back and watch as Tracy Ham goes down. The right hand will reach back, and the left hand, and he's just grabs that lower back.
And as soon as he turned, he went down. I mean, the moment
watch right there. See, he's grabbing the lower back there, and I suspect that's the problem area for him. I don't think it was the legs.
This team has had injury problems already. You remember Chris Wright, the electrifying young player for Baltimore last year, injured on the second day of training camp here in Montreal and will be out for the season with a torn anterior cruciate ligament. And they've also had other injury problems. You remember a receiver for Sacramento last year, Joe Kralik, who was outstanding with the San Antonio Texans and Sacramento before that. And he is injured as well, may return sometime next week. So Bob Price and the Alouettes have concerns about their quarterback, and we'll take a break. We'll be back with more from Montreal in just a moment. That's unbelievable.
I'm Jim McKay with another update from the 2020 Global Games. Little Jacqueline Keller captured the gold today on the highly uneven bars, while Austria's gentle giant Milos dominated the 1-ton power lift. The highlight of the day so far was the record-breaking 300-meter dolphin relay.
The world of sports is ever evolving, but athletes of today can choose All Sport Body Quencher for fluid replacement, unsurpassed taste, thirst-quenching flavors.
Coming up later, the graduated hurdles.
CFL Live on TSN. Brought to you in part by Diet Pepsi. Diet Pepsi has no diet aftertaste.
In obvious pain, Tracy Ham is just now leaving the field. They brought the stretcher up for him, but he said he didn't need it. And now Tracy Ham will go to the locker room for attention, and we'll get a report for you just as soon as we can. On the field, Terry Baker is on to punt to Jimmy the Jet Cunningham. Good punt by Baker. Sends Cunningham back to his own 1-yard line. And Cunningham reverses his field. And here comes the Jet. Look out. He's got room, and he gets up to the 29-yard line before he is finally forced out of bounds on the play by Alan Wetmore, number 39. And the Jet, who joined the Argonauts late in the season last year, played just 6 games, but averaged 20 yards a punt return last season. That time he got 27.
Yeah, these are usually the moves that separate the decent punt returners from the really good ones. I mean, everything was plugged up, and the Jet knew he had the kind of speed to take it to the outside. He got a little bit of help from Donnie Wilson to seal off the corner, but that is a great return to get yourself deep out of a hole.
Under 5 minutes to go in the opening quarter. Doug Flutie and the offense go back to work. A field goal, all they have to show so far. Flutie throws it underneath, and it is dropped. He looked again to Robert Drummond, and Drummond has really been getting a lot of attention so far.
Well, I think Doug Flutie realizes that he's got a couple of terrific backs that can catch the football, and he's going to use them a lot. And Tracy Ham looks a lot better than he did about 10 minutes ago.
2nd and 10 for the Argos as Tracy Ham continues the long, slow walk to the Montreal dressing room. 4 receivers to the top of your screen. And Flutie looking back the other way, goes underneath, completes it there to Paul Mazzani. Mazzani up to the 40-yard line. Should have a Toronto first down with a pickup of 11. Let's go down to Michael Whalen for a report on Tracy Ham. Michael?
Yeah, I just talked to the team physician of the Montreal Alouettes, Dr. Eric Lechner, and he tells me he has confirmed what Leaf suspected, which is that he has back spasms, that Tracy Ham has back spasms, and they've taken him to the dressing room, as you saw, and they're working on it right away.
First down for the Argos. Flutie back to work up over the middle, has a man, and he dropped it. Looking for Tyrone Williams, and Williams wasn't able to make the catch. And that's probably one he should have had.
And it's a formation that Doug Flutie thought would be very successful against Montreal tonight. A 6-receiver set where they spread Montreal out. Flutie felt that the middle was vulnerable, and although the coverage isn't too bad, Tyrone Williams should have had that. And you know, the obvious comparisons really come up between Tyrone Williams and Alan Pitts in Calgary. And you know, does Doug Flutie think that he has a potential Pitts and Williams? And he said he's a long way from Tyrone, but he has great athletic ability, and someday he may get there.
Flutie goes back the other way and completes it over there for the Jet, and Jimmy Cunningham gets across midfield and out to the Montreal 52-yard line. And that's one thing that Toronto is very anxious to do, in addition to special teams, get Jimmy Cunningham involved in the offense.
Well, it's an interesting look, too, because you've got the Jet. There you see Kenny Watson. He's got the flat out here, and it's just a zone coverage on 2nd and 10. Lots of room to get it to Jet Cunningham, and that's the kind of play, Gord, that you mentioned. They could get to him easily and allow him to use that speed.
Pickup of 18 yards. First down, Toronto, and Flutie goes back underneath, and this time unable to make the catch is the pinball Mike Clemens, as Flutie found him underneath.
You know, if Doug Flutie gets in a rhythm, usually the only way you can stop him is to have mistakes occur in the offense. And already on this drive, they've had a drop by Pinball Clements. They've had a drop by Robert Drummond. But Flutie's been able to convert back-to-back 2nd and long situations.
And this is another.
Well, again, that quad set, 4 receivers wide, 2 to the weak side. He wants to go in the middle here.
And here it goes, man open, and the pass is complete down there to Tyrone Williams, and Williams has a Toronto first down as he stopped at about the 33-yard line. And that time, Williams got the long arms out, makes the grab, and gives the Argonauts a first down. Gain of 19 yards.
Well, this is what Doug Flutie hoped to accomplish, was to open up the middle, and there's Tyrone Williams, 81, man-to-man with Kenny Watson, but there was still lots of room to get that ball in there. So obviously they're using a scheme they thought would work, and they're having success with it early.
And they go right back to it, 4 receivers to the near side of the field.
It's a great place to run quarterback draw, too, from this formation.
Flutie goes out to the sideline to Williams that time, and Williams gets down to the 26-yard line. He'll be a couple yards short of a first down after a pickup of 7. Tyrone Williams had just 6 catches last year, and one concern for the Argos in training camp was he hasn't seen a lot of game action. Remember, he bounced around in the NFL from Dallas to Chicago to Buffalo. It's been a few years since he played in a meaningful football game.
And that's what Doug Flutie talked to me about tonight. And, you know, he dropped the ball on this drive, and he said one of the big differences between a Pitts and a Williams is Williams just doesn't have the intensity yet, and I think intensity comes with playing time. I think you make a good point.
2nd and 3, they give it off underneath, and it will be close to a first down as Robert Drummond was the ball carrier. And Drummond got down to about the 23-yard line, which is where he needed to be, and looks like they'll measure this to see if it's a first down. Robert Drummond was a great underappreciated football player last year for Baltimore. Think about this. He did not score a touchdown. In fact, in the last 2 years, he scored only 1 touchdown, and yet the Baltimore Stallions raved about his play the last 2 years.
Well, I think for Robert Drummond, his problem was 3 things. Peter Tuipulotu, Mike Pringle, and Chris Wright. They were all kind of getting the ball more than he did. That was just too many good players to have everybody get the ball a lot. But I'll tell you one thing, when Pringle missed a few games 2 seasons ago, Robert Drummond did a heck of a job in relief for him, and I think every team in the league knew that if they ever had a chance to get him, he would help somebody.
Had more yards receiving than rushing last year for Baltimore. He comes up a yard short here. And look at that. Yeah, Flutie's in Toronto. You can think Don Matthews will gamble here. Oh yeah, 3rd and 1. Back they go to Drummond. Oh man, and he got whacked that time. Tracy Gravely came up to make the stop, but I think they're going to give the Argos the first down. Tracy Gravely, the former BC Lion, came up and really put the hit on Robert Drummond, but I think he got there.
I think his forward momentum carried him to a first down, but nevertheless, it was a heck of a hit by Tracy Gravely right in the hole. You're going to get a good look at it. You'll be able to see, yes, he definitely did cross that plane, but pretty good solid hit by Gravely and a little help from Jason Bryant.
First down Argos. Flutie from the shotgun. Here comes the blitz. Flutie gets it away and complete to Palmazzani. Check that, the Jet, Jimmy Cunningham, and the Jet is down to the 15-yard line as time winds down in the opening quarter. A pickup of 7 yards for Jimmy the Jet, who had just 15 catches last year.
Yeah, and if you're Montreal, I think you want to see, can Toronto handle the blitz, and you want to do that early. They came with it there, and Toronto picked it up nicely, allowed Flutie the time to hit Cunningham on the underneath route, but you know, I think that's a situation where Montreal isn't getting much heat, and if they're going to have to bring a few extra people than the 4 they've just been rushing.
Pinball stays back to block. Flutie goes underneath and down to the 11-yard line to Robert Drummond, and Drummond should have another Toronto first down as the final play of the first quarter sees the Argos move closer to the Montreal end zone. 3-0. The Argos lead the Alouettes after the first quarter on the CFL Live.
CFL Live at the quarter. Brought to you by Subway, the place where fresh is the taste.
Welcome back to the CFL Live. Not the way that Tracy Ham wanted to start this 1996 CFL season, and now Doug Flutie is moving the ball downfield, and he's looking dangerous. He's got momentum. Glenn, what about those two?
Well, first of all, when you talk about Doug Flutie, whenever Doug Flutie team needs momentum, he goes into the hurry-up offense, and that's really what he's doing right now, and that's when he's most dangerous. On the other side of the coin, Tracy Ham, I mean, that's devastating for the new coach, the new team, and now to lose their starting quarterback and leader, that's going to hurt their team.
You're going to get a look at Jim Kemp now, Darren, and obviously he's not as mobile as Mr. Ham is. But he can throw the ball, and he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the CFL. He backed up Archer last year with San Antonio, and he completed 53 passes for 750 yards. He's a pretty good quarterback, and like I say, there's a dearth of good ones in the CFL right now.
You know what we also saw in the first quarter of play? The Toronto Argonauts with a number of drop balls. They did that last year. Les, if they're going to be effective, they can't be doing that.
No, they can't be dropping the ball because last year they had some struggling quarterbacks, and drop passes even made them look even worse. Right now, Drummond's dropped 2 of them, and they got Tyrone Williams coming across the middle dropping 1. But they're still moving the ball, and they look pretty good. I want to take back my prediction.
And your prediction originally was Montreal was going to...
because Tracy Ham. But you
exactly. You didn't know that Ham was going to go down. And there's still a lot of football to be played in this game. We've got 3 quarters to go. That'll do it for the first quarter of play as we head back to Olympic Stadium.
Thanks very much, Darren and fellas. Toronto up 3-0 as Doug Flutie looks for the end zone for the first time this year. And here are the numbers through the opening 15 minutes. No passing yards for the Montreal Alouettes. Well, that's a number that'll stand out for you. 1 turnover by Montreal. That was the interception by Dan Murphy that led to the only points, the field goal by Mike Vanderjagt. Doug Flutie was 8 for 13 in the first quarter. And right now he's looking to get it to the end zone from the shotgun on 1st and 10 from the 11. 4 receivers to the wide side of the field. Flutie pump fakes, end zone, incomplete, looking for Robert Drummond. Jason Bryant, the linebacker, was there on the coverage, and the pass was just out of the reach of Robert Drummond.
Well, again, 4 receivers to the wide side of the field, and Robert Drummond is in the slot. He runs an out and up, and he is open. Doug Flutie knows he has to throw it on a rope instead of putting a little airtime on it, and he just can't get it in there. And, you know, when you talk about guys who are competitive, I mean, he would be at the top of the list.
He fishes hard.
Yeah.
2nd and 10 from the 11, and Flutie back to the shotgun. Again, 4 receivers to the top of the screen. Back to the end zone they go for Tyrone Williams, and the pass goes incomplete. And over on the coverage was Ken Watson. And the Argos, once again deep in Montreal territory, are denied.
You know, that's a good matchup, Tyrone Williams and Ken Watson. Williams at 6'5" and 220. Kenny Watson 6'3" and over 200 pounds. So physically, the 2 of those players match up quite nicely. And Ken Watson had perfect coverage on the inside hip. And Doug Flutie puts it in a spot where only his guy is going to make the catch. And if he did, it would have been a spectacular one.
Ken Watson right in the hip pocket of Tyrone Williams. And now Mike Vanderjagt will try another field goal, this time from 18 yards out. Vanderjagt puts it up and through. The Argos have points again, but it's a field goal, and Toronto with a 6-0 lead on the Montreal Alouettes. And now the focus will be on the Alouettes as Jimmy Kemp on the offense gets set to come out on the field. Look at Doug Flutie's numbers with Calgary. Last season, Doug Flutie completed 67.2% of his passes. In his career, he's 60.2%. Only Tom Wilkinson and Tom Clemens have better career completion percentages.
Well, he has the high percentage, and he set a CFL record, as you see, with 48 touchdowns and 94. Even last year, an abbreviated season, 16 touchdowns. What I liked was the interception to touchdown ratio. He only threw 5 interceptions. So, you know, obviously a guy that gets great results offensively, but also doesn't beat himself, and that's a pretty healthy combination.
An injury-plagued season last year for Flutie, who had 16 touchdown passes last season, his lowest since 1990, his first year in the Canadian Football League.
He's happy to be in Toronto, too. I mean, he lives in the Boston area, and family can get up to see him a little easier.
Here's Tyrone Rush from the 18-yard line. Rush has had good success returning kickoff so far. Gets out across the 40 to the 41. And now the ball goes to the Demon Deacon, Jim Kemp, who played at Wake Forest University. We mentioned his dad, Jack, was a Hall of Famer with the Buffalo Bills. And well, this is a tough situation for Bob Price and the Montreal Alouettes to put a guy in. 4 touchdown passes, we mentioned last year, but 9 interceptions in his 3rd year in the CFL, learned as the understudy to David Archer.
Yeah, and last year, David Archer was hurt in a game they played against Calgary in San Antonio. And I remember Jim Kemp was just having a heck of a game. They didn't win it. But, I mean, he is no slouch.
And right away, he'll come up throwing. Kemp wings it out there, but it falls incomplete. Don Odegaard was there on the coverage. And the pass was intended up there for Chris Armstrong, who was yet to see a ball in his direction, but it falls incomplete.
All of a sudden, you get Jim Kemp in the game, and he gives Toronto a different look. Tracy Ham very content to just run the football, and all of a sudden play action to start Kemp's second quarter here.
2nd and long, and Tim Cofield's out there. Kemp from the shotgun. Here comes the pressure. Kemp gets away and throws it down to the 52-yard line, but that is incomplete. He was looking down there for Nigel Williams, and it's 2-0 for the Alouettes with Jim Kemp. Let's go back to Michael Whalen.
Hey, listen, guys, these Alouettes could be in a dilemma because if Jack Kemp, I just saw him rolling out there, if he gets hurt, they don't have a backup to Kemp. So I don't know what they do. I presume they would use one of their halfbacks who knows the plays a little bit better, but they do not have a 3rd quarterback ready to go.
Michael, it's funny, at a commercial break, Gord Miller and I were just chatting about that, and we kind of felt that maybe Joey Yock might be a 3rd string quarterback. He has been a quarterback before, and I know Spencer McLennan, who is their defensive middle safety, can play a little quarterback too. So,
but you can bet that nobody's run the plays. I mean, I'm sure Spencer McLennan hasn't taken any snaps. And Joey Yock played in North Carolina, and I believe he was a quarterback when he went there. Terry Baker's punt off the side of his foot and bounces out of bounds at the 39-yard line. A 31-yard kick by Terry Baker. The Argos lead 6-0 as the CFL returns to the Olympic Stadium. Doug Flutie and the Toronto Argonauts have a 6-0 lead thanks to 2 Mike Vanderjagt field goals. But for Flutie and the offense, it has not been the kind of start they might have wanted. A slow start. Look at Doug Flutie. Speaking of fast starts, remember, he's only been in the CFL since 1990. He's got a chance to pass Tom Burgess this year. You got to think he'll go by maybe even Damon. Well, he'll go by Damon Allen, Ken Austin, and there's some pretty serious quarterbacks in front of him. And Doug Flutie, in that little time, has put up those kind of numbers. And every morning in the Boston papers, every Monday morning, they still print Doug Flutie stats and compare him to whoever's playing quarterback for the New England Patriots. 1st and 10 for the Argos from their own 39. 13 minutes to go in the 2nd quarter. Flutie gives it off to Robert Drummond with a convoy in front lets his head down again. He is a load and gets out to the 46-yard line. Well, when Robert Drummond decides to run over someone, he generally does.
Now watch the play by Vic Stevenson and Joe Burgos from the backside. Here's big Vic Stevenson and Burgos. They just get on their horse and run the counter and lead Robert Drummond right around the corner. This is a nice looking play, and you know, Tracy Gravely on the other side is walked off on the receivers, and he just can't get back in to make the play, but well executed.
Brings up second and short yardage for the Argonauts. And back to the ground they go. Back to Robert Drummond, who fights his way out to the 50-yard line and should have a Toronto first down. Mike Clemens is not figuring much in the Toronto offense so far. It's been all Robert Drummond.
It really has, and I think, you know, you're going to see Robert Drummond carry the ball mostly on the, you know, do all the groundwork for Toronto. Clements is going to catch a lot of balls, I think, in this offense. He dropped one early, and Doug Flutie hasn't gone back to him since.
Mike Clemens rushed for 836 yards last year, a career high.
I don't think you want your offense to be structured around Mike Clemens running the football, though. I really think it's better with Drummond doing that, and I think Pinball can be much more effective in the slot and catching some passes. But I really think if their offense is going to function at a high level, Mike Clemens is not going to be your leading rusher.
Last time Don Matthews had Mike Clemens on his team, Clemens won the CFL MVP award in 1990.
Yeah, I tell you, it seems like a long time ago. I was looking at that today. I thought 1990, was it really that long ago? But it was.
Drummond has the first down, and the Argos have it at their own 49. Flutie waits, throws over the middle, and Jeff Fairholm takes a shot but cannot hang on. It falls incomplete at the Montreal 45-yard line. First pass to Jeff Fairholm, and he paid the price for it. Remember the first game last year, he suffered a concussion.
Well, he's had a tough last couple of years in Toronto, and here he has a chance to make the catch. Here he is right there. He gets the good inside position, but the hit coming from Spencer McLennan in the middle. You'll see Fairholm take his eyes off the ball right about there. Oof. The hit comes, and he's not able to hang on, but, you know, he desperately needs to get off to a good start this year.
On second down, here's Flutie, and he's got it to Tyrone Williams. Williams still going. Lost the football. It's a fumble and picked up. Irv Smith has it. And the Toronto Argonauts have turned the ball over. And Irv Smith comes up with the recovery as Tyrone Williams lost the handle.
Well, you know, the best defensive backs in the league, they're going to get beaten, and Kenny Watson gets beaten across the field, but he does the next best thing. Watch this. He can't stay with Williams here. It's a good catch, good throw, all of the above, but now the fun starts. Kenny Watson's trying to get that ball loose, strip it loose. He's able to do that. Irv Smith gets the recovery, and that's a real heads-up play by Ken Watson. Well, he does the next best thing here. The left arm, the right arm goes in, and he just finally pops it loose. And the Montreal Alouettes get their first turnover of the night.
Irv Smith, the CFL All-Star the last two seasons in Baltimore, 94 and 95, and he's got a quick fumble recovery here for the Alouettes. There's an injured Toronto Argonaut. It's veteran offensive tackle Vic Stevenson, signed as a free agent in the offseason. And Stevenson, in his 16th year in the Canadian Football League, is down on the turf as the Montreal Alouettes get a turnover, and now we'll see if they can take advantage of it. As much as they've been outplayed in this football game, they're only 6 points down.
There's Vic Stevenson up at the top of your screen right there, and we'll see if we can have a look at exactly what happened to him. He's in great position taking on the block of Grant Carter, but
just lost his balance and fell awkwardly. And so Vic Stevenson is...
What happened to his neck?
Yeah, I don't know. Shrunk a little bit.
Is it in there? Yeah, I know these linemen, you know, sometimes they don't have a whole lot of neck, but he didn't have any neck.
That's right. From the Toronto 49. First down for the Alouettes. Here's Saunders. Waits, finds some room, and gets down to the 45-yard line. Saunders, after a gain of 4, is stopped up. Greg Eaglin came up to help make the tackle.
You know, you have to wonder about Tim Caulfield, just how healthy he is. He didn't play in the preseason. Let it go just for a little bit, and I want to stop it right here. Here's Caulfield right there, and I'm telling you, he's allowing himself to be blocked pretty easily right there, and there's not a whole lot of fighting. He has been coming upfield very hard tonight. I think he's still injured.
Second and 6. Here's Saunders inside the 40 7-yard line. A first down for the Montreal Alouettes. They came out throwing in Kemp's first series, but now they go back to what they appear to do best, and that's running the football.
Well, they didn't have a lot of success throwing, and in the first quarter, all their success was on the ground. So I think he's gone back to the sidelines, and you know, when he didn't get a first down that last series, and they said, look, our strength is with our offensive line and our running game. Let's go back and use it.
On first down, the Owls go to the shotgun. Kemp underneath, has it there, and look out, room to run, and here comes Chris Armstrong, and we saw that a time or two when he played with Tracy Ham, and that time he's pushed out of bounds at the 15-yard line. So Chris Armstrong with his first catch of the year.
Well, when you get caught in a man-to-man defense and you're going to run the crossing routes as an offense, you're going to have a heck of a lot of success. Here is Chris Armstrong right here. Here's Ed Barry. I mean, you just can't chase this guy all the way across the field. You saw it happen to Kenny Watson, but I mean, that's just too much to ask of the defensive back. Toronto got caught in a vulnerable situation, and Jim Kemp hit it.
Gain of 18 yards gives the Alouettes a first down at the Toronto 15-yard line. Back to the ground, Son. And he is stacked up very quickly on the play. A gain of maybe a couple. Oscar Giles, another former San Antonio Texan, comes over to help make the stop. Andrew Stewart and Reggie Gibbons were there too.
Now, Gordon, you go back to that last pass play, and more teams on every single pass play have a guy coming across the middle. So if they happen to get man-to-man defense, they have a great matchup and a very difficult situation for a defensive back to cover. And you know, Tyrone Williams caught one on that. He fumbled it, but now Chris Armstrong catches one. And you know, it's just understanding what you're going to expect the defense is going to do. They caught the man-to-man and hit it.
And there's an injured Montreal Alouette down on the field. 9:21 to play in the second quarter. The Argos lead 6-0, but the Owls are threatening. A big cheer went up a moment ago at the Olympic Stadium as Tracy Ham returned to the Alouette bench. By the way, Mike Withacombe, the CFL's outstanding offensive lineman a year ago and unanimous All-Star, just left the game for one play, and it's an important one. 2nd and 7 coming up for the Alouettes on the Toronto 12. So Ham may be set to return, but right now it's Jimmy Kemp who will try to get the Owls into the end zone. For Jim Kemp, and Joey Yock runs a nice quarter pattern here. He is wide open. In fact, he can just backpedal and relax and make that touchdown catch. And again, Ed Barry is the victimized Toronto defensive back on that play. Chris Armstrong got one on him, and now Joey Yock turns him around in the corner and gets Montreal's first touchdown in a lot of years. Yeah, they've waited nearly a decade to cheer a Montreal Alouette touchdown, and it was worth the wait by the sound of it. You heard Larry Smith talking with the late arriving crowd. It really was. There's a very good crowd here at the Olympic Stadium, and a noisy one now. Joey Yock, just the 2nd touchdown of his CFL career. He's in his 5th year. And of course, another son of a famous father, his dad, Ray Yock, a longtime coach in the Canadian Football League, most recently with the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Sometimes these are the toughest catches to make when you're just sitting there waiting, saying, no, nothing's going to impede me from being able to make this catch. And sometimes you have so much time to think about it, it's tough to concentrate. But he looked it in and got the first touchdown of the season and the night for the Alouettes.
The Tyrone Williams fumble leads to a Montreal Alouette scoring drive, the first touchdown of the game. So both turnovers in the game have led to points, but Toronto only got 3. The Owls got 7. Terry Baker kicks it off. And here's the jet from his 15, and they think to reverse the pinball. And here comes Jimmy the Jet. There's a flag down, and the Jet vaults his way across midfield down to the Montreal 53. But there's a Alouettes is coming back. Oh, yeah. Was there anything more demoralizing than that?
Well, you look at where the ball would have been out near midfield, and now it's going to put them deep in their own territory. That's a lot of yardage to give up.
Wipes out a 42-yard return by Jimmy the Jet Cunningham.
And that was out to the 52-yard line, and now look where they're going to scrimmage on their own 10. That's 42 yards.
Number 81, first down.
Tyrell Williams is having a tough first half. Fumble and now a holding penalty to cost your team 42 yards. And sometimes those special team penalties are nothing more than mental mistakes.
Now Flutie and the offense go back to work with 100 yards to go. On first down. He throws it underneath, and the pass is complete there to Mike Moriali, number 78. He's the cousin of Paul Mazzotti, the second-year man out of McMaster University in Hamilton. And so the Alouettes go 49 yards in 5 plays, and Joey Yard begins the new era of scoring in Montreal with the first touchdown of this returning franchise. Pickup was just under 10 yards. It'll be second and short for the Argonauts. Flutie dives straight ahead, and he'll have the first down easily. 7:40 to play here in the second quarter, and you get the sense now that the Argos need to get something going here as the crowd is right back in the football game. The Owls can come up with a stop here. They'll really have the crowd on their side, especially if Tracy Ham comes back in.
I tell you, they must have had a magician for a doctor in the locker room, because I mean, you thought, you know, 1 minute he's dead, and now he's back throwing balls on the sidelines again.
One of those soccer guys, you know, they give you the magic sponge and the guy springs back up. Graham Leggett will hate me for saying that. First down, Argos. Here's Doug Flutie. Long throw up there, and he completes it to the pinball. He throws about a zillion moves, and finally is brought down. He threw the kitchen sink at Ken Watson. Gets out to about the 29-yard line.
When you start deep in your own territory, as Toronto did on their 10-yard line, the key ingredient to getting yourself out of trouble is to have good, solid plays on first downs. And the first down they've made on this drive, they had about 9 yards, and now they're second and about 1.5 again, and this is why they're having success. Key first down plays.
Norm Casola, number 80, comes into the game for the Argos. The gift of Robert Drummond on that counter play, and he fights his way out across the 30 to about the 33-yard line. And Ken Watson, having a good first half, comes up to make the stop.
You know, when you start on your own 10, as an offense, you have to do everything in segments. And the first segment for Doug Flutie is to say, hey, let's try and reestablish field position. Let's make a couple of first downs. And the worst thing we do is punt. We've reestablished that field position. Now, if you get it out to midfield, you start thinking points, and your whole philosophy changes. But he's done a good job of back-to-back first downs. Now they're in good shape again.
Empty backfield for the Argos. 6 receivers in the pattern. And Flutie throws it there for Paul Mazzotti, and Mazzotti is touched immediately by Douglas Kraft as he gets up to the 42-yard line, about a yard short of a first down.
You know, Gord, you mentioned Doug Flutie, 67% passer last year, 60% on his career. This is why. Little underneath pattern to Mazzotti, very easy to complete, and now 9 yards. Last time a first down swing pass to Mike Clemens, 8.5 yards. High percentage, and boy, oh boy, can you keep your offense going when you're doing those kind of plays.
Now Flutie enters center on second and short. Drummond again. Whoop. Poor Tracy Gravely. He's the bug, and Robert Drummond is the windshield.
You know, Toronto keeps getting these second and short situations. I think one of these times you're going to see Doug Flutie go to play action and air one out, because they're certainly in a position now where they can gamble on third down. It's been a masterful drive.
Time consuming too, under 5 minutes to go now in the second quarter. Flutie from the shotgun, back to the pinball, and he puts the move on Gravely. Look at pinball fight his way out to midfield. The stop is made there by Irv Smith.
Now we get the situation I just talked about. They're going to be about 2nd and 1 or less at midfield, where you could gamble, and I think it's a perfect opportunity to take a shot at the big one.
You talked about Flutie throwing underneath the high percentage passes. One thing defenses did last year was creep up on Flutie, not believing he could beat them deep, and eventually he had the elbow surgery because the arm was giving him so much problem. We have yet to see Flutie really air one out in this game, and I think that's what a lot of people are waiting to see.
Well, I hope you see one right here because it's the perfect time for it. Unless, of course, they picked up the first down. But I think sooner or later, if Toronto's going to keep nickel and diming with the passing game, which has been so effective on this drive, Baltimore is going to have to change and either roll up their corners or bring everybody up and start to challenge those receivers a little tighter.
If you were with us on the pregame show, Doug Flutie told me that he feels that his arm strength is back to where it was 3 years ago, that he finally has some zip on the football, and that the surgery really helped him. Well, it's 2nd and inches for the Argos, just into Montreal territory at the 54.5.
I got bump and run with Jimmy Cunningham up top.
Option. Risky play on short yardage, but Clemens turns it back upfield, and it looks like his forward progress will get him there. Ken Benson had a chance to stack him up, but that one extra move from the pinball got him the first down.
Hey, Paul Randolph, the outside linebacker, really makes quite a play here. Here he is, and it's so easy to get sucked in here, but he stays to the outside and actually does a pretty nice job on pinball Clemens. There he works to the outside, fights off the block, and you'll see him run down Clemens from behind. Good angle.
9th play of the drive, and they're only halfway there. First down for the Argos from the Montreal 51-yard line. Flutie looked to be changing the play there. Almazzati on one knee ducks down and gets to the 42-yard line. And the stop is made once again by Watson. Ken Watson's been a busy man. That was a long throw by Flutie.
Well, it's good recognition by Doug Flutie. I mean, they're going to play a zone. Kenny Watson's going to come out here, and you're going to get a drop back here. So Mazzotti just sits in the open hole. And, I mean, this is easy offense for Flutie to complete. That's how the zone works. There you see Doug Kraft going back, and Paul Mazzotti's wide open. Flutie reads it, and again, great yardage on first down.
Yeah, pickup of 8, 2nd and 2. And there goes Robert Drummond again, breaking the first tackle and crossing the 40-yard line down to the 39. Another Argo first down as we hit the 3-minute warning. Montreal leads the game 7-6, but the Toronto Argonauts are threatening. The CFL Live continues from Montreal after this. Thanks, Darren. Welcome back live to the Olympic Stadium. I'm Gord Miller with Leif Pedersen. The Toronto Argonauts with a drive that began at their own 10-yard line are 1st and 10 at the Montreal 38. Again as they flip it out to Robert Drummond. One man to beat in the corner, but the turf monster got Robert Drummond as he falls down at about the 30-yard line. And Drummond with another good gain on first down, an 8-yard pickup. It's 2nd and 2.
You watch to the right of your screen here. When you run the option, you play a game against one guy, and as Flutie runs down to the right side of the line, you're going to play a game on 54, Grant Carter. Watch him. He's got no place to go. Carter 54 is caught flat-footed, and Drummond gets to the outside. But you play a game against one guy, and there's very little he can do.
Option out of the shotgun. How about that? Robert Drummond with the dive over the middle here. What is this? The Oklahoma Sooners of the 1970s? The veer option. Here comes Robert Drummond diving it over the middle for another pickup of a couple of yards.
And keep in mind, this drive started at the Toronto Argonaut 10-yard line, and I venture to say they've made 6 first downs and had no worse than 2nd and 2 on any one of those first down plays.
7 rushing plays so far on this drive for the Toronto Argonauts. Now Flutie back to the shotgun on first down. Flutie has time, completes it to the pinball, and Mike Clemens, oh, what a great move there, gets down to the 15-yard line. Just when you think you got him, he gets away. Tracy Gravely was all ready to wrap up Mike Clemens, and he just ran through his fingers.
I think Montreal is going to have to make a decision on defense right now. Things have been too easy for Toronto on this drive, completing these short passes. And if Montreal is going to continue to be in a zone defense on first down, Doug Flutie is going to do this all night. And I think at some point in time, Montreal is going to have to change, bring a few people, more pressure, and come up and snug up tight on those receivers, which they're doing right now.
Pickup of 11 yards first down, Argos. Flutie underneath for Mazzani, and Mazzani fighting his way down to the 5-yard line, wrapped up by Douglas Kraft, but it should be another Toronto first down. We're very close to it, and you've been talking about the gains on first down, and this is just tremendous execution by the Toronto Argonauts.
And Paul Mazzani is so good at this. Watch him. He'll straighten up Doug Kraft, take a little outside shoulder, and then cut back in real hard. Right here, boom. Now he's come to the inside. He's looking for a bit of a pick. He didn't get it, and he didn't need it. And he struggles for a few extra yards and gets the first down.
15th play of the drive. It's already gone 95 yards. First and goal. The gift to Robert Drummond. Long way to go. Reverses his field, waiting for a block. Here comes Drummond. Touchdown. Robert Drummond ran about 40 yards to get 5, but he's got an Argo touchdown.
And guess who threw the key block for him? It was number 2, Doug Flutie, and I hope we're going to get an angle where we can see this, because Grant Carter, 54, had Drummond in his sights, and Doug Flutie put his head down and absolutely cartwheeled Grant Carter to allow Drummond to get in and score the touchdown. It's an unbelievable play. You're going to see Flutie end up, as Drummond will come back, it's going to occur at the right side of your screen, and I hope you see it. There's 54 in the middle. There's Carter. Watch it. Boom. There's Flutie. That's the block, and that allowed Drummond to get in.
That's a lot of money throwing blocks there.
It's the competitive nature, though, Gordon.
Mike Vanderjagt with the point after. It is good, and the Toronto Argonauts regained their 6-point lead on the Montreal Alouettes. What a drive by the Toronto Argonauts to start at their own 10.
Just your basic 100-yard drive. But again, you know, and it's worth repeating, the whole key to it was their first down production. Set everything else up and made that drive look rather easy. It wasn't easy, but it looked rather easy. Once again, we're going to go back and have a look at Doug Flutie. We're going to let it run and we're going to stop it when it gets critical, because you're going to see Grant Carter, 54, turn around and start coming back against the flow, and all of a sudden, stop it right here. There's Flutie, and watch what he does as Carter, 54, is going to come into your screen. This is a heck of a block. Well, you don't quite see it there. There you do.
You just see him cartwheeling.
You see him cartwheeling on the ground, and you talk about a guy who has competitive juices flowing. It certainly is Doug Flutie, and it certainly is Robert Drummond, who made a pretty nifty run to get that touchdown.
Nigel Williams and Tyrone Rush are back deep to receive the kickoff from Mike Vanderjagt. This is Rush from the 16-yard line. And he gets out to about the 38 that time, as he is stopped on the play by Cooper Harris, the son of Wayne Harris, the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Calgary Stampeders. Wow, 15 plays, 100 yards, 7:25 it took off the clock. We weren't halfway through the second quarter when that drive started.
Well, it was a beauty.
Here's a guy who might not be old enough to remember the last time they played CFL football in Montreal.
Yeah, I would say he doesn't.
He wouldn't remember you then, Lee.
There's a lot of people like him.
First and 10 Alouettes from their own 38-yard line. Jim Kemp remains in the football game for the Owls and throws it quickly over there to his intended target, Chris Armstrong. And Kemp has gone to Armstrong a lot here in the early going. A short gain, make it 5. It'll be second and 5.
And I think that's a good choice. I mean, if you look at the receiving court, I know Joey Yacht caught a lovely touchdown, but I mean, Chris Armstrong is the guy you really want to use. You think Toronto's dominated this quarter?
Jim Kemp might forget what the football looks like. Second down. Tim Cofield can't get away. Lots of time, and he completes it again to Armstrong. And look out. He wants a block. Now Armstrong takes it back over the middle. Armstrong puts his head down and gets to the 31-yard line. What a play by Chris Armstrong, and a great throw by Jim Kemp to get it there.
Well, Gordon, I think the key, too, is the kind of time that Jim Kemp is getting to throw. This crowd loves it. They're into this game. They're seeing a lot of solid offense right now, but watch the pocket that Jim Kemp's offensive line provides for him, because it took quite a while for Armstrong to come free, and Don Odegaard just can't stay with him right here, can't make the tackle, and then the fun starts. Chris Armstrong, always one of the most electrifying receivers when he starts to run with the football.
That time it's a pickup of 28 yards for Chris Armstrong. Last year, his second consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season, and he has always been a favorite target of Tracy Ham going back to their days with the Edmonton Eskimos.
Now, he's a guy that likes to get deep, and they like to go to him deep at least 2 or 3 times a game. So far tonight, they're using him underneath, and slowly, you know, as the tighter coverage comes, they'll go over the top with Chris Armstrong, I'm sure, in this game. But Jim Kemp, has he ever played well since he came in for the injury to Tracy Ham? And, you know, again, the offensive line with that good protection, you can step up with that front foot and deliver some strikes.
Here's a guy who is well known to football fans everywhere. The coach of the Buffalo Bills and former coach of the Montreal Alouettes, Marv Levy, took his team to the Grey Cup 6 times in the 1970s, met Edmonton in 5 of those games. And there's a lot of former Als down there to...
There's Charlie Bailey, who just went by, head coach at McGill. There's Larry Fairholm, right in the middle of your screen.
Jeff Fairholm's dad.
A lot of players well known to football fans. Sam Echeverry's number is, there's Sam tired here. And Sam Reeve in the background. Sam with the suit on. They're going to retire that number, as you said.
Now the focus on the current Alouettes on first down. Kemp guns it, but it is incomplete. No, it's a catch. What a grab by Joe Young. Oh, man. What a catch by Joe Young, the man who caught the touchdown pass earlier.
It really was a good grab. Looked like he was going to drop, and then he double clutches and hauls it back in again.
Caught the back half of the ball.
Well, I tell you, he had Greg Eaglin all over him, too. I mean, that's terrific concentration. He's having a heck of a first half.
First down from the 25. 20 seconds to go in the first half. Kemp dumps it underneath and incomplete, looking for Tyrone Rush. And that'll stop the clock with 15 seconds to play. So time for the Alouettes to maybe go once to the end zone, and then if they have to, kick the field goal. But this is a gift for the Als, who got the ball back after that long Toronto drive and have driven it impressively.
They really have, and boy, you have to look at Jim Kemp. Didn't seem to be nervous at all as he came into this game. There are his numbers and abbreviated playing time.
And Tyrone Rush just dropped one. Second down, and Kemp goes to the shotgun. Chris Armstrong lined up on the near side of the field. And that's where Kemp is looking. Here comes the rush, and Kemp is down. Andrew Stewart got the big paw on him and gets the first sack of the football game.
Well, what they're counting on from Andrew Stewart is a big push up the middle this year to flush those quarterbacks out to Tim Cofield's side. And here he comes. He doesn't disappoint here when the pressure's on. And you know you got to get some heat on the quarterback. And little second effort to get by the block of Mark Dixon. And he picks up the first sack for the Argonauts this year, I believe. That is the first sack tonight.
Well, Tracy Ham went down earlier. I'm not sure if they credit a sack for that or not. I guess somebody has to get it, but the first true sack of the football game.
Yeah, well, I don't count that one where Tracy Ham went down. You give that to the ball boy.
Hey, you know what, though? The player who got it, he'll take it at the end of the year. Hey, I had a sack.
That's right.
I sacked Tracy Ham. He's hard to catch. And Tracy Ham is up and walking around on the Alouette sideline. Remember, he left the game in obvious discomfort earlier with the back spasms, and he'll watch now as Terry Baker tries a field goal of 38 yards. High snap. Kemp got it down. Baker puts it up and through. And the Montreal Alouettes pulled within 3 of the Toronto Argonauts with 5 seconds to go in the opening half. And as good as the Toronto drive was, Montreal was pretty impressive coming back.
You know, last Sunday, Gordon, our opening game on our control show, I talked about Montreal and some of the problem areas they may have, and I said Terry Baker was a question mark in a kicking game, and, you know, I said that because they lost Carlos Huerta, a terrific all-star kicker, and Josh Miller, their punter, and now Terry Baker, who had a questionable season in Toronto last year and in Ottawa as well, and, you know, I've never doubted Terry Baker's ability. I just said that this is a question mark, and, you know, I hope he proves all of us wrong, and he gets off and has a great season, and, you know, he gets his first field goal try, so he's 1 for 1 and off to a good start.
Here's another question for the Montreal Alouettes in addition to the kicking game. How can they replace the numbers that Mike Pringle put up the last couple of years? 3,700 rushing yards, 700 more receiving yards. This guy accounted for nearly 5,000 yards of offense and 29 touchdowns in 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to replace that. I don't think that's possible. I think this is a team that was about 60% run, 40% pass last year, and I suspect you're going to see those numbers reversed.
So replace them by committee.
That's it.
Baker just dribbles the kickoff here. And they might want to be careful. Decent return on the play for the Toronto Argonauts, but that's the So the Montreal Alouettes and Toronto Argonauts hook up in a very close first half. It is 13-10, Toronto leading as Montreal came back with a late field goal.
Well, I thought it was pretty well played first half, pretty good entertainment. A 100-yard drive by the Argonauts. Jim Kemp answers with a field goal to make it pretty tight at the half, and I think people should be pleased with what they saw.
Football is back in Montreal, and when we come back, our CFL Live halftime show.
CFL Live at the half. Brought to you by Corel, world leader in CD-ROM technology.
Welcome to At the Half, and during that first half of football, we saw some tentative play in the first quarter, Glenn, but then both offenses seemed to settle down and they started to move the ball in the second quarter.
Yeah, I think there was a feeling out process for both teams and trying to get used to their new offenses as well. They were trying to figure out exactly who their personnel is, the terminology, but as it happened, I think the big key was Sean Kemp did not hurt Montreal when Tracy Ham got hurt. In fact, he goes 5 for 9, 74 yards, and does pretty good.
Yeah, Jim Kemp comes in there and does.
What did I say? Sean, Jim Kemp.
Jim comes in there and does a pretty good job. The red zone, though, that was a problem for Toronto. Originally in the football game, they were moving the ball downfield less, but yet they couldn't punch it in. Eventually, they do that with Robert Drummond.
The red zone really hurt Toronto. It kept Montreal in the game. They got down there twice early in the game, one from a turnover, and they got nothing at all, come up with anything.
Glenn brought up a good point. Everybody's trying to get themselves facilitated and adapted to their respective offenses. And we talked about Doug Flutie being a 4-time CFL MVP. He enters this football game, and he's like everybody else. He's got to get used to the Argos, Marty.
Well, Darren, I'm wondering if maybe Doug is having a memory problem again, because I talked to Don Matthews about a week ago, and he said in the preseason, Doug was having some trouble with the Toronto terminology. He was having some trouble with the Toronto offense. Let's face it, he played 3 years with Calgary, and he was very familiar with John Huffnagel's offense. This is an entirely different offense, guys. This is Baltimore's offense that Matthews is using.
It goes to bring my point into light when I said that the new guys take time to cling together or to play together well.
Speaking of new guys that look pretty good, Robert Drummond on that drive, give him the ball, and he'll hammer away, and the pinball didn't look too bad either. Now, I'm going to take you back in time to August the 21st, 1986. The Montreal Alouettes were facing none other than the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And who was playing for the Ticats and looking awfully fine wearing number 15? Les Brown. He picks off Brian Rantham and then starts running it back. Hey, Jeff Patterson was the receiver. You thought that was good? How about this one? Pops it up the tip drill. Ben Zambiazzi.
We got play of the week for this right here. Ben gets the pick, pitches it to me, and I go for a touchdown. I forgot to mention it. 4 picks and a touchdown.
Four picks and a TD in that game. That's not a bad game at all, Les. And we haven't left you out. We're going to bring in some footage of Glenn Suter a little later on. Well, you had over 50 interceptions in the Canadian Football League during the course of your 11-year career. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, but I remember looking at the stat sheet every Monday morning and see Les Brown with another 3 interceptions. I have no shot at catching him.
Hey, I just want to know one thing. Are you going to show some clippings of my story?
No. No, we won't. What we will do is take a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Edmonton Eskimos and the BC Lions. They will meet this evening at BC Place. More at the half when we return.
CFL Legends, brought to you by Corel. He was one of the CFL's most exciting kick returners. More on Gene Gaines in a moment. Seasons as a defensive back with Montreal and Ottawa, Gene Gaines was a CFL All-Star 3 times, won 4 Grey Cups, and was the East's most outstanding player in 1966. As a kick returner, Gaines was explosive and still holds the CFL record for longest kick return. Gene Gaines, a true CFL legend. And you can see more on Gaines and other CFL legends at the Canadian Football Hall of Fame in Hamilton.
The Toronto Argonauts lead the Montreal Alouettes 13-10 at the half. Welcome back to TSN's Control Studio. Now, a little later on this evening, the Edmonton Eskimos will take on the BC Lions at BC Place as both of these teams make their regular season debuts. Last year, the Eskimos were 13-5. The BC Lions were 10-8, but they are decidedly different. David Pratt, earlier today, got a chance to talk to new head coach Joe Paopao.
Over the last couple of years, the BC Lions have gone through more changes than a newborn baby. Hard to believe that just 18 months ago, this BC Lion team won a Grey Cup at this very building, and now there's just 7 starters that remain. Joe, what is it going to take to put the pieces back together?
Well, you know, in any good organization and team, you got to have continuity. We felt that the changes we've made were for better from a standpoint of athleticism. And so it's only time will tell, and it starts tonight. So we look forward to the challenge with the Eskimos.
Joe, this is the first regular season game for you as a head coach. We start playing for keeps. How do you feel? A little nervous? A little excited?
No, you know, we're prepared. So there's nothing to get nervous about, and ultimately it's down to the players going to get out there, and it's the team that usually makes the least amount of mistakes that's going to, you know, come up on the winning side of it. So, you know, that's what we're hoping for.
A little special because this is the Edmonton Eskimos, a team that you tried so hard to beat as a player, then you worked with them for the last couple of years. I mean, and it's still the Eskimos.
They're tough. They're well organized. They're really the team that everybody shoots for to be like. Haven't been there for 2 years. I know why. Hugh Campbell, Ron Lancaster, they're good people that know how to deal with it, and I think I'm a better person and a better coach for being there.
Well, best of luck tonight and for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right. It's the BC Lions as they take on the Edmonton Eskimos here at BC Place. Now let's go back to CFL Control.
Thank you, David. So Joe Paopao takes over for Dave Ritchie. They've also got a couple of quarterbacks out there, and Andre Ware and Chris Vargas. Ware is the starter. How do you think they'll fare this year, Glenn?
Well, first of all, I think they have probably the best tandem in the league, arguably the best tandem in the league. When they got that Chris Vargas
I'd argue
deal,
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when you got Donegan and Anthony Cavillo out east, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good one, too. But, I mean, Chris Vargas and Andre Ware. First of all, Andre Ware won the job in preseason. He had over 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, led the team in rushing. So he gets the job, but with Chris Vargas behind him, here's a guy who always makes good decisions, never hurts the football team. I think they got a good setup in BC.
You know what? I do like the looks of him, too. I really do. I like the way that Andre Ware had played football last year, and it was tough for him to come from the National Football League to the Ottawa Rough Riders, and it was a difficult situation. Now he's in British Columbia, and he's getting himself a chance with these Lions, and I think he will be able to do the job. And you notice whenever a football player comes up from the National Football League or from the collegiate level at the U.S., and they're good scramblers, like Tracy Ham, he's rushed for over a couple thousand yards. They rely on that rushing game, and then they learn to adapt, and they start throwing the football. Les, you and I were talking about this last week.
I think they use both. I think they use both things. They come in, as a matter of fact, like you said, Tracy Ham came in, and he used his running ability till he learned the size of the field, the width of the field, and how to use his receivers in that. I don't think that you can go from being a great quarterback to being nothing like when you're in college to coming up here and playing ball.
What about Danny McManus, the Edmonton Eskimos, which was the quarterback factory forever? Last year, things did not work out with Kerwin Bell. Now, Danny McManus, formerly the BC Lions, is running the offense in Edmonton. Marty?
Darren, I think Danny McManus is an improvement over Kerwin Bell. I mean, he's won a Grey Cup. It was only 2 years ago when he did that. But I still think the jury is out on McManus. He doesn't have the skills that a lot of the
That's just it, though, guys. Is he a starter? Last year he tossed 19 touchdowns. He had 26 interceptions, threw for almost 4,500 yards. But is he a bona fide starter?
Well, he started last year in BC, and he threw 25 interceptions. So that's why Edmonton is talking, and I'm bringing the name up again, guys, Damon Allen. So they're talking to Damon Allen, and he's going to end up somewhere sooner or later, either in Edmonton or Saskatchewan.
But still, I'm a Danny McManus fan. I've been on teams with him. I've seen this guy throw the ball. He's got such a strong arm. He doesn't just throw it east and west. He throws it north and south. He gets the ball down the field.
And you know what these two teams have are strong running games to help them. With the Edmonton Eskimos, they got Eric Blount, and it makes it a lot easier for Danny McManus to be 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4 in BC. Corey Philpott and Sean Millington, which takes a lot of pressure off your respective QBs.
Well, they're calling it thunder and lightning in BC when you got Sean Millington running down the field, rumbling down the field, and then the quick Corey Philpott. You got the great combination there, and it also helps in the blocking in the passing game with Millington. On the other side of the coin, you have, Eric Blount, who I think is probably one of the best in the league.
But guys, in BC, they're losing. I don't think they have the receiving core they had last year. Darren Flutie is gone, and I think that team's going to hurt with receivers. Who are they going to throw the ball to?
Oh, they got Matt Clark, and they still have
Mike
Trevathan. And I think
that's
those
what
are
I mean.
two,
Who are they going to throw the ball to?
Those are two very high caliber type receivers.
Very good possession.
Who are back in the positions they should be playing, which is slot back. I mean, Matt Clark was out in the wideout position before, and that's not his position.
You know what I'd like to talk about? The Edmonton Eskimos defense. Last year they gave up 19 points per game. That was it. They are spectacular with Benny Goods and Leroy Blue and Willie Pless and Larry Ruck and Glenn Scrivener down on the line. Look out. This is a tough defense. They were the best in the CFL last year. They're the best this year.
And Scrivener's another guy that
they're going to be
lost.
missing one very important factor to that defense, though, which is, I think, the defensive coordinator, Rich Stubler. He left this year. He left Edmonton to go on to one of the U.S. colleges teams, and I think they're going to miss him a lot.
Well, it's going to be a good football game. We will take a short break. We will have more at the half when we return. They are parading out some of the best Alouettes ever to play in Montreal, and we've got a pretty good game at the half here, 13-10. This is only game number 2 of 40 that we will bring you during the course of this season. Tomorrow night, it's the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Matt Donegan versus David Archer. We'll have a pregame show for you starting at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, then the game at 7:30. Let's go back to Montreal for Leaf and Gord's first half thoughts.
All right, thanks very much, Darren. Pretty interesting first half, Leif. When you look at the numbers, consider that Montreal lost Tracy Ham early in this football game, and Jimmy Kemp does a pretty good job. The Alouettes with 117 net yards, 77 of them passing, and Joey Yacht comes up with a touchdown catch. The Argos point that stands out, the 15-play drive that took more than 7 minutes and took them 100 yards for the go-ahead score. Leif, let's talk about the Montreal Alouettes without Tracy Ham. What adjustments did they make?
Well, I think right away they decided to let Jim Kemp throw the football. That's his forte. He's got a very strong arm. As you saw, the adjustment they made, they went to a little more play action. I think in the second half they're going to still have to get back with the running game. I think if they're going to win this game, it's going to have to be on the ground for a couple of reasons. Number one, they do it pretty well, and number two, it's going to take some time off the clock and hopefully keep the ball away from Doug Flutie because he looks like he's hot.
Yeah, Toronto fans got a brief look on that drive of what Doug Flutie and the Argonauts can do, but it's a very close game after 30 minutes. They're honoring their greats here in Montreal, and there's some pretty great ones coming up to play in the second half. Doug Flutie and the Toronto Argonauts get set to go to work in the second half of a football game. The Toronto leads 13-10 as the CFL is back in Montreal. And Jim Kemp, yes, Jim Kemp is the quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes, taking over for Tracy Ham, who left the game early in the first half with what we are told are back spasms, which can come and go as mysteriously as anything else. You can feel fine 1 minute and rotten the next, and Tracy Ham certainly did feel rotten when he dropped to the turf. The Montreal Alouettes are down by 3 after getting a field goal near the end of that opening half, and they'll kick it off to the Argos to start the second half. Mike Clemens and Jimmy the Jet Cunningham are back deep to receive. Good low kick by Baker, taken by Clemens, who gives it off to the Jet. Here comes Jimmy Cunningham, quickly out across the 30. He gets out to the 34-yard line as the stop is made in the play by Ken Benson. Some of the stuff that we were watching in the opening half as the Toronto Argonauts got to work quickly, and especially on that drive that went 100 yards. We saw Paul Mazzotti, one of several receivers, and also Robert Drummond, along with Tyrone Williams, making big catches on first down. And Leaf, that's one thing you talked about was their performance on first down. There's a bullet pass by Flutie for Mike Clemens that went through about 3 pairs of hands, and that time they're turned away on first down. It'll bring up second and long, a situation the Argos haven't faced much tonight.
Seems like back in the first quarter was the last time they were second and long. Jason Bryant, the outside linebacker, had a terrific chance to make the interception. There you see the distribution. Flutie going to his left a lot more than you might think as a right-handed quarterback.
And Flutie clicking along at 64% in this football game so far. Has time, and now Flutie will run. He's got to get to the 43-yard line. He won't get there, and he got Johnson got up to hit him, as did Jason Bryant, and Flutie appeared to be shaken up as he got up.
Yeah, I think Paul Randolph was also in there on that play, and one of the few times that Flutie has had a little pressure. Nobody open initially. That's plenty of time to throw. Good coverage downfield, and I think you'll see 36 Randolph really gets the good shot on Flutie's hip right there, and he did get up a little slowly. Although one thing, you know, you always look at Doug Flutie, and he looks so small and little sometimes, but he's had great durability over his career, other than the one elbow injury and surgery he had last year.
Tyrone Rush takes this punt. 35-yard kick, a return of 8. Doug Flutie was holding his left elbow, his non-throwing elbow. And we'll see if he is able to return when the Argos get the ball back. Jim Kemp remains in the game for the Montreal Alouettes. We saw Tracy Ham emerge from the dressing room late in the second quarter. And you can see that Flutie's in some pain now. Boy, Tracy Ham and Doug Flutie injured in the same game, and you can see it is the left elbow.
Well, the helmet of Paul Randolph looked like it hit his hip, but maybe it did in fact hit that left elbow when he went down, but I suspect it's not too serious.
1st and 10 for the Alouettes from their own 44-yard line. And Jim Kemp is up to throw right away. And it's the first catch for Nigel Williams, and he is tripped up neatly by Marcelo Simmons, the defensive back, in his first year out of SMU. Joined the Argos late in the season last year.
Gord, you know, when you want to run a quick screen to the wide receiver, one of the things you have to do is get it out there quickly. And, you know, Kemp faked to his right first, and you'll see Nigel Williams set up there, but the play takes so long to develop. Watch how much time the Argos have to react. I mean, that takes a long time to get there, and when it does, the play is nullified.
Loss of 2. It brings up 2nd and 12. Kemp stands in, delivers, and it bounces out of the arms of Chris Armstrong, who was open over the middle. Don Odegaard, the defensive back, was there on the coverage. Don Odegaard's an interesting story. Craig Monge is the director of player personnel for the Argos. He had him in Hamilton, Memphis, and now Toronto.
And he had good coverage that time on Chris Armstrong, a guy that Toronto has not been able to control. Armstrong with 3 catches in that first half.
Terry Baker on the punt now, standing back at his own 30-yard line. Low end-over-end kick that the Jet, Jimmy Cunningham, lets get by him.
He should let it go for a single now if he can.
I think he touched the football.
Yeah, he did.
I think he touched the ball.
See, that's a big-time mental error right there.
Now they've got to decide where to spot the football. The Alouettes are saying it's a safety, but I believe they're going to spot it at the 1.
I think they're going to call it a single. The referee was holding one finger and indicating a single, and I think Jimmy Cunningham's very lucky, because he should just have the awareness to say, hey, look, the ball's got by me, let it go in the end zone, give him the single, but he made that thing pretty interesting.
They're spotting the ball at the 35-yard line. It is a point, but almost a huge mistake by the Jets. And more. And the Jet, you'll see it right here trying to pick it up. If he picks it up and then gets stuffed back in the end zone, that's 2. And that's what the Alouettes were arguing, but he was right on the goal line when he got the ball. And so they'll score it as a single point, and it brings the Owls within 2.
And as soon as he got up and they unpiled, Mike Clemens went right over to him and gave him a quick lecture and schooling on what to do in those situations. And I doubt that, well, I hope he doesn't make that mistake again.
1st and 10 for the Argos as Flutie goes right to work from the shotgun. Over the middle he goes, and incomplete, looking for Tyrone Williams. And the pass was a bit behind him. Williams not able to squeeze it.
Yeah, both teams really using the crossing routes a lot in this game. Tyrone Williams on that one. The last series, Chris Armstrong, and you know, he couldn't hang on. But Montreal has come out and played a little more aggressive man-to-man here in the 3rd quarter. And when they do that, those crossing routes are super plays to run against them.
And now the Argos go to the no-huddle offense that Flutie likes so much and which worked so effectively on that long touchdown mark. Flutie guns it over the top, has a man open, Mazzani, and he makes the catch down at the 38-yard line. Paul Mazzani spun around, makes the grab, and Doug Flutie uncorks it at 37-yard Toronto game.
Now, one of the things Doug Flutie said is Mazzani is so deceptive, and there, you know, Doug Kraft thinks he's got help over the top with Kenny Watson, and Watson just didn't get to the outside. That's a blown zone coverage where nobody picks up Mazzani deep, and to Flutie's credit, he read it and saw the mistake and took advantage of it. Zadi, the leading receiver, Gord, for the Argonauts with his 5th catch now in the ballgame.
No problem, please. On first down, Levy back to the shotgun. His intended receiver fell, and the pass was very nearly picked off by Charles Gordon. He was looking over there for Jeff Fairholm, who has not had a lot of business today.
Yeah, he really hasn't, and I almost thought that Doug Flutie would try and make it a point to get Fairholm involved in the offense early. He wasn't able to hang on to a ball that Flutie threw him in the first quarter. And Jeff Fairholm is a guy that I know Flutie's counting on, and Don Matthews is counting to try and get his career back on track. He had 3 1,000-yard seasons with Saskatchewan, and then 2 horrible seasons back-to-back with Toronto.
Fairholm said in training camp if he was the coach of the Argos, he's not sure he would have brought himself back.
It's pretty honest.
Second down. Lots of time for Flutie, and he's thrown it over the middle. The jet is there. Oh, man, it is picked off. And look out, Irv Smith ran flush into the goalpost when he made the interception. He hung on to the ball, but oh, man, what a collision. Head on with the goalpost. Irv Smith's okay. He's got the interception to go with a fumble recovery earlier in the game.
You know, Gord, it almost looked like Irv Smith was baiting Doug Flutie to throw that ball to Cunningham. He let him go get loose, and then at the last second he used his tremendous speed to close the distance, make the catch, and then take the hit by the old goalpost right there.
And no way to avoid it, as the jet, Jimmy Cunningham, came right over him, and Doug Flutie picked off.
Well, he needed a little more airtime on that one. Cunningham was in the open, but Irv Smith, who has been an all-pro corner, closed the gap and made the nice play.
Flutie didn't throw many interceptions last year, but he did throw one here. The turnover gives the Alouettes the ball back. And the give goes to Mike Saunders. Good work to fight his way out to the 30-yard line for a gain of 5.
Tim Caulfield likes to go to that stand-up rush end position. He doesn't put the hand down, and as he comes across the field, he feels the trap coming. Here it comes now. Nick Zubas, 51, and Caulfield takes it on, forces it to the inside, but boy, he just doesn't seem like he's getting upfield as quickly as he has in the past, and I think he's still bothered with some injuries.
Second down, 5 yards to go. Saunders stacked up again. This time he gets bottled up by Eddie Berry, among others. Rob Waldrop in to make the stop, well short of the first down.
You know, Gord, when you look at the Toronto defense, essentially they're playing Greg Eaglin and Donnie Wilson at outside linebacking spots, and they are defensive backs originally in their careers. And, you know, at first look at this Toronto defense, you'd think, boy, we should be able to run to the outside, but you know, Toronto really hasn't been vulnerable. Montreal has made their yardage up the middle, not to the outside.
One hop snap to Terry Baker. That's another punt off the side of his foot. And they'll spot this up around the midfield marker as Mark Nelson, the special teams coach for the Argos, tries to help out. And you know what? He got the spot. Toronto, look at Ken Austin. In 95, he throws 14 touchdown passes. The year before was Saskatchewan, he threw 24. In 93, Tracy Ham just threw 6 touchdown passes, coming off a 30-touchdown year for Edmonton. Matt Dunnigan in 1990 threw 17 touchdown passes, coming off a 27-touchdown year for the BC Lions. They've had problems at the quarterback position, and Tracy Ham knows all about it. He took the heat for Toronto's collapse. Now Doug Flutie goes to work. Throws it there for Pinball Clemens, but it falls incomplete. Tracy Gravely there on the coverage as the pass hopped in front of the pinball. And Mike Clemens has been a major part of the offense in the second and early third quarter, but mostly on the receiving end of passes. Second down. Flutie with lots of time. Swings it out for Robert Drummond. They converge quickly. What a great play made there by Jason Bryant to trip up Robert Drummond 5 yards short of a Toronto first down. Jason Bryant from Moorhead State in his second year.
And they had the perfect defense call. See the difference when it's 2nd and 10. You know, you can do so many things differently on defense, and both corners for the Montreal Alouettes are up short in the zone defense, and Doug Flutie has no choice but to drop it off to Robert Drummond, and initially it's Jason Bryant in there with the hit. But I mean, when it's 2nd and long, things really change. Argos had it all their own way in the second quarter when they had the solid first down production. Now with bad first down plays, they haven't been able to move the football.
Good kick by Mike Vanderjagt. This is Tyrone Rush. Dropped the football. Did he get it back? He's down to the 22-yard line, and he did manage to recover it as the Montreal Alouettes were converging very quickly on it.
I think the officials have shrunken the 5-yard zone this year on punts, because there was about 3 guys that were in there within 5 yards.
And Jimmy Kemp comes back to work for the Montreal Alouettes. Well, the Alouettes, remember, just before the season started, I think the day before the season was set to begin, they won the Grey Cup 4 times. Now they've got their team back as the Baltimore Stallions moved here. The Alouette franchise was founded 50 years ago this year. On first down, they give it off to Mike Saunders. Saunders gets out across the 25 to about the 26-yard line for a gain of 6. Elliot Price from Montreal was telling me yesterday that he was going to do the play-by-play of the Alouettes season opener in 1987. And he was going to Toronto for the first game, and someone said, no, I saw the players out drinking tonight. I don't think they're going. And sure enough, they didn't.
And Elliott didn't go.
No. 56 yards rushing so far for Mike Saunders, nearly a 6-yard average. Now on 2nd and 5. Camp looking to throw. Wants to go deep, or does he? His receiver wanted to go deep, Nigel Williams, but he threw the out. So a little miscommunication there on 2nd down brings the punting unit back on the field for Montreal.
Well, every team's receiving core usually has adjustments depending on what kind of defense they see, and Joey Yock was running to the corner, but he read his own defense, and oftentimes that adjustment is to hook up into an open area, which he did. And Jim Kemp, who probably hasn't had a lot of practice time with the first team, he didn't read it, and he threw to the corner, and Yock actually, I think, made the correct adjustment.
Jimmy Cunningham catches the bunt this time. And a flag is down as Cunningham gets to the outside. This will be a clip against the Toronto Argonauts. Another flag is down. Donald Smith is sitting down at the 43-yard line, about a yard from the flag that was thrown for his illegal block. We'll be back with more from the Olympic Stadium with the Argos leading by 2. Well, Donald Smith upset with himself for the illegal block that negates yet another big return by Jimmy the Jet Cunningham. He had one of 40-plus yards wiped out in the first half, and so the Toronto Argonauts will now start at their own 42-yard line, and you know that Don Matthews doesn't like that. If anyone takes pride in his special team, it's this guy.
Well, I think you made a good comment at the break. What's the rule of thumb on that blocking from behind?
If you can read his name, don't hit him.
That's it.
It's very easy.
Often, you know, it's very easy to say, but very tough to do in the heat of the battle sometimes. I think people lose sight of that. Nevertheless, it is kind of a dumb penalty to take.
I'm not sure what you're supposed to do if you can't read, but if you can't see his face, don't hit him. I don't know. That was my problem. First down from the 47-yard line, and the Argos go right back to the ground. And they give it off again to Robert Drummond, the busiest of all Argos today. That time a gain of just a couple will bring up 2nd and 8. Robert Drummond had just 45 carries last year for 228 yards for Baltimore. Did most of the blocking, though, for Mike Pringle. Today, he's already got 12 carries.
And what I like about Drummond, too, is his size. I mean, you've got a guy who's 6'3" and 215. He can run between the tackles. He's got speed to go to the outside. And, you know, you hope he stays healthy because I think he can have a terrific season.
Played college at Syracuse, not far from here. On 2nd down, Flutie steps up, and now one hops it out there for Tyrone Williams. And Flutie not pleased with that effort. Quickly 2 and out for the Argos, and the punting unit comes back on the field. Been a funny game. The first quarter was kind of like this as well.
Well, the second quarter was a terrific offensive quarter for both teams, but for Don Matthews and the Argonauts, they've really gone away from what was successful in the second quarter. They were using the pass on first down very effectively and then able to run on 2nd down. Now they're running on first down, not getting enough yardage and having to throw on 2nd down. So it's been a total role reversal for Toronto's offense, and they've stalled entirely here in the third quarter.
Mike Vanderjagt had a brief run with the Saskatchewan Roughriders a couple of years ago. Oh, did he hang this up high? Rush from the 18-yard line, and he is stopped right away. What a great tackle made there by the Argos. Dwayne Dimitrition was in on the stop as well. A loss of 2 on a gain on a punt of 42 yards.
Well, you look at question marks for teams as they enter a new season, and obviously, I think the kicking game was one area, and Mike Vanderjagt has really not disappointed at all. Had a strong preseason field goal wise, and now in this game has had tremendous punts.
Charles Washington with a tackle on that last play. Michael Souls, a hometown hero of Montreal, the Vanier Cup MVP in 1987, led the McGill Redmen to the Canadian University Football Championship.
Yeah, I called that game. He had 226 yards rushing, I believe.
He was unbelievable. Kemp throws it underneath for Joey Yock, and Yock fights his way out to about the 26-yard line, which is just about where he needed to be for a first down.
Yeah, good recognition by Jim Kemp. Toronto Argonauts on first down are basically a zone kind of team, and when you drop off, you have to take the crumbs, the little things, and the little things here are Joey Yock coming underneath with lots of room to run after he catches the football, and you have to appreciate that when Jim Kemp. He hasn't had a lot of playing time, but he certainly understands the right places to go when he makes the right reads.
Yock had only 3 catches last year for the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
He's overworked.
He's had a season in an evening.
Well, he had a nice touchdown catch in the second quarter to get his team back into this football game. I'll tell you, I'm really impressed with Jim Kemp, and I'm not surprised. He always did a very capable job as an understudy to David Archer in San Antonio, and of course in Sacramento before that. So I'm not surprised by his skills, but I'm very pleased to see how well he has performed tonight.
His brother, of course, was a quarterback in the NFL for a couple of years, played for the Rams. First down for Joey Yock and the Montreal Alouettes at the 26-yard line. Kemp throws it underneath for Chris Armstrong, maybe his favorite run. Look at him go up to about the 40-yard line. Don Odegaard finally forced him out of bounds. Chris Armstrong is so effective, just making the short catch and running for miles. Pick up a 12 yards.
Well, again, they always have one receiver coming underneath in case they get this kind of coverage. Once again, there you see Reggie Gibbons dropping way out from his middle linebacking spot, and you know Chris Armstrong's a guy that you just can't chase across the middle and try and stay with him. But both teams using the underneath crossing routes very effectively.
Another first down for the Owls, who have a nice drive going. Mike Saunders, the lone back in the backfield, takes the handoff from Kemp, puts his head down, and gets to about the 43-yard line. Don Wilson in to help make the stop, along with Oscar Giles. Mike Saunders out of the University of Iowa, a Hawkeye. And, of course, began his career with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. An outstanding year for Saskatchewan. Moved on to San Antonio last season.
Known more as a pass receiver out of the backfield, but I think obviously with this team's makeup offensively that they like to run the football, he's going to get that opportunity a lot more than he has in the last few seasons.
2nd and 6. Kemp looking for a bundle. He's got Climbey open. John Climbey makes the catch and stays inbounds at the 32-yard line. Another first down for the Alouettes as John Climbey gets 35 yards.
And what happens when you have the successful running game as Montreal has had on this drive? You can go to play action and it buys yourself just a little extra time. The fake draw holds the linebackers, and John Climbey down the sidelines on an out and up comes free and makes a nice catch.
Great job to get the foot down too to make the catch count. A 35-yard gain that sets the Owls up 1st and 10 at the Toronto 32-yard line. Saunders back inside. He goes inside the 30 to about the 26-yard line. John Climbey's interesting. He went to school at Queen's University in Kingston, played for Ottawa, 2-hour drive from Kingston, played for Toronto, 2-hour drive from Kingston. Now he plays for Montreal, 2-hour drive. He's got the whole thing surrounded. And you see his best years with Ottawa back in 1993.
And he became a free agent after that season and signed with Toronto. Things just didn't work out for him, and you know he's another guy that's trying to resurrect a young career too here with Montreal, where he's going to be counted on.
Kemp with time throws it down underneath and has a man climbing, and he has the catch at the 9. Whoa, great sliding catch that time by John Climbey. And if Climbey wants to argue with the officials, he's well qualified to do it. He's a lawyer.
That is true. He worked hard to get his law degree, and you're going to see a nice ISO. He's in the slot this time against Don Odegaard and heads gets him straight upfield and then uses his speed to get the separation. And had that been a better throw, he might have scored. But, you know, the key when you're in the slot is to go straight at the defensive back to freeze him and then make your cut and climb. He did it perfectly.
Pickup of 19, first and goal from the 9. Kemp gets it to Nigel Williams. Touchdown! +25,000 in Montreal see the Alouettes retake the lead.
Well, you have to wonder what kind of goal line pass defense the Toronto Argonauts were trying to use, as Nigel Williams is just left wide open. There you see Marcelo Simmons slowly coming into the picture. But when you're down around a team's 10-yard line, your defensive backs have to come up and be a lot more aggressive than